Our second session today, titled Utilizing Foundation Models to Drive Enterprise ROI, is a panel discussion into the versatile applications of AI, like myself, across business and industry. Please welcome to the stage our esteemed speakers, Rob Thomas, Shankar Trivedi, Vaughn Schermerhorn, and Chuck Adkins, who will explore the many ways in which enterprises are leveraging foundation models to power business operations and process.
Good morning. Hi, I'm Chuck Adkins. I'm the CIO of the New York Stock Exchange. Thanks for joining us today. At the New York Stock Exchange, one of my key roles is to lead the innovation program there. And you can't spell innovation without AI, certainly not this year. So I spend a lot of time thinking about artificial intelligence and what we're doing at the Exchange for artificial intelligence. We've been working on ML and AI programs for about 7 years. And in the last 3 years, if I think about the enterprise programs that we have that have been very successful, 3 years ago, we started a chat program that's using NLP and AI to do help desk and find knowledge for our employees at the company. And this year, we just finished rolling out AI Ops for our SRE and operations teams. Now, one of the things that I think about is how I can prioritize and how I can best find which projects are going to bring ROI to the company. All the employees at the company and our board are very interested in us working in AI, as I am, but it's really key, I think, to think about how we can prioritize these things. So today I've got 3 great gentlemen with me from the industry to talk exactly about that, how they think about prioritizing projects and how they think about return on investment in their companies. We've got Rob Thomas from IBM, Shankar Trivedi from NVIDIA, and Vaughn Schermerhorn from Amazon. Turn it over to you guys real quick for an introduction, and then we'll get started.
Hi, Rob Thomas. I'm with IBM. I run software for IBM, and I also lead our go-to-market, so spend about half of my time on each one. Spend a lot of time on generative AI. We started investing in 2020 to get to where we are today.
Hi, everyone. I'm Shankar Trivedi. I'm responsible for industry business development at NVIDIA. I've been with NVIDIA for 15 years. And we are an accelerated computing platform, and we go to market by industry. So thank you all for being customers of NVIDIA. Our deep learning journey started in 2011, 2012. And obviously, we're doing a lot of work with generative AI, which I'm happy to talk about.
Hi, I'm Vaughn Schermerhorn. I'm the director for community feedback at Amazon, and I'm responsible for our global customer reviews network worldwide. So 22 different marketplaces, 28 different languages, multiple billions of pieces of content coming in, some structured, some unstructured on an annual basis. We need to make decisions about what's appropriate for our customers to see, what to expose them to. So we've got a long history of using ML to leverage content moderation and content understanding and sentiment. In this last year, with the rise of a lot of new tools in the AI space, we've been able to marry some of our long-standing research and understanding with some of these new tools to launch summarization and highlight tools for our customers and really see immediate return on investment for some of the AI investments that we've made at a foundational software and product team level.
Thanks, guys. Let's jump in and talk about what process you're using at your firm to prioritize what projects you should be adding AI into. Maybe, Shankar, maybe you can start with that.
So obviously, our most important work is in autonomous machines. Just this week, we released our software to train robots. And prior to that, we've been another very interesting thing we've been working on is with Getty Images on the Edify image generation software that leverages all of their body of work in photographs and images. And we've been working, another thing we've been working on with ServiceNow on taking all of the ITIL libraries and automating that. We've been working with Bloomberg. But internally, our biggest work is in the self-driving car space, where synthetic data generation is probably the biggest workload for generative AI. So I'll repeat it. The synthetic data generation is probably the biggest workload for generative AI.
Vaughn, with so many ideas and that must be coming to you at Amazon, do you have a process that you use to help determine which ones you should be focusing on?
Yeah, I'd say, in many ways, we largely use the existing planning tools that we've always used. The way that I think about AI with my teams is AI is a tool to be leveraged. And ultimately, we go back to what are the customer problems that we're trying to solve. And in many cases, we had some pretty durable customer problems that we've been pretty iffy at solving over many years because we didn't have the right tools. And so as we're thinking about where we invest, at least with my team, as opposed to, I think there is an area of exploration and brainstorming that we've gone into and thinking about how we can use these new tools to solve problems, but we've also gone pretty quickly into kind of tactical application. Where are we going to make these investments? What's the return look like? And are we effective in solving customer problems with the application of these tools? And so far, at least within my space, that's been a really successful way for us to think about it. To justify the cost expenditure, to justify the compute cost, to think about kind of the fully burdened way that we serve our customers and kind of lower what we internally talk to as lowering our cost to serve. And so, I think a lot of times people think of AI as expensive because it can be, but leveraged correctly, it's actually quite the opposite because it solves customer problems at scale efficiently in a way that we're really seeing great returns for.
Yeah. Rob, how do you determine where you're going to drive ROI?
Our core mission is to deliver products for other companies. So we spend a lot of time talking to clients, what do they need? For what we're doing in generative AI, our approach was slightly different, which is that we said IBM will be the first customer. And in a year, to give you an example, we had an HR service center that was 1,000 people. And in 1 year, we took it from 1,000 down to 90. And we're getting 93% automation rates. And then wasn't even really a product at that point. The output of that is now we've created a product for that, which is, I think the biggest opportunity for any company is, I know this is not sexy, but G&A. Automating repetitive tasks, everybody should be able to get a much more efficient and productive back office using generative AI. Yes, there's a lot of implications. You go from 1,000 down to 90 people, you're dealing with a lot of personnel, that type of thing, but to us it's existential, meaning we have to be more productive because then we can help clients be more productive. And so I think it's probably just an example that the technology is tangible today.
Yeah. So I think let's talk about some concrete examples that you're seeing. Shankar, could you maybe go into some concrete examples that you are seeing at NVIDIA?
So think about the self-driving car problem, right? Or an autonomous robot inside a factory that's moving materials. Each of these robots has to be trained on billions of miles of situation, right? And so the only way you can do this is to use accelerated high-performance computing, where the computer generates all of the scenarios for you. And so you just cannot do it in the physical world. And so that's kind of the way that we think about it. That's why we built 6 of the world's fastest computers that we ourselves use to do those amazing simulations. And then once you codify it, just like Rob is talking about at IBM, you then release that as a software product. So you take this huge body of work and then you make it available to your enterprise customers via a software subscription. So that's kind of what we're doing. Another example is the work we did with the University of Florida. So there are 22 million members in the healthcare system. You take a body of work starting with 2 million patients. You anonymize. We anonymized every single patient record. We created the synthetic data set that can be used with electronic health records. And today now, the clinician in University of Florida Health System actually can enhance and augment their medical notes using generative AI, in that case, it was a 40 billion parameter language model, which is customized, domain-specific to the medical profession.
Yeah, thanks. So Vaughn, backstage we were talking about some concrete examples that are new for you. Do you want to share those with the...
Sure. I think there's been some pretty interesting and exciting announcements over the last couple of weeks across Amazon, things that, that you can use today, that you can see today, and even just yesterday during our quarterly earnings call with Andy and Brian, they called out a number of those different things. I think we've seen applications come out on the seller side of our business, where we're launching tools for sellers where they can more easily, quickly launch high-quality listings and sellings in the marketplace for e-commerce, which is important given the importance of our selling partners and the size of our overall marketplace. You've seen things just this last week being announced with our advertising conference, where the ads team is giving advertisers the ability to take product images and put them into lifestyle imagery and choose what that lifestyle imagery is using generative image techniques to help them make their businesses more efficient. So I think these are really kind of concrete examples of like real world customer problems. Within my team specifically, if you were to pull out your phone right now and go to the app and look for something, you know, look at an Echo Dot and then look at those customer reviews. There's about 50,000 reviews for an Echo Dot right now. No one has time.
Can't read all of them.
50,000 reviews. And yet those are pieces of content and information that customers have taken the time to give, and there's value in those. So how do we harness that value? Well, one of the things that the team and I did is we took those 50,000 reviews and we used analysis of the entire corpus to understand what were the things that customers were talking about, to cluster those, to name those, to give that into to shopping customers in a really easy to consume way. We gave them a paragraph of 3 or 4 sentences, said, you know, this is generally how customers feel about this thing. Here are the things they like. Here are the things they don't like. Explore deeper at your discretion. And what we've seen in launching that is that customers spend less time reading reviews. That's actually great because they're able to make decisions faster. They're happier with those decisions. And so we see that as a concrete example of where helping customers sort through a huge amount of content to more easily make a decision has been a really great use case for us.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So Rob, can you talk about what you're seeing with your customers, and is these models changing how they or how you think about return on investment in them?
We see 3 main use cases that have risen to the top after, I'd call it 12 months of experimentation with probably not huge ROI. And I think these 3 are coming to the top because the ROI is pretty evident and quick. One is customer service. Every company can serve clients better using generative AI in some capacity. Second is what I was referring to before on automating back office. So think of it as digital labor. How do you automate any repetitive task? I'd say third is code. We've built a model that's now 1.6 trillion tokens, supports 115 code languages. We've started with the ones that clients demand the most from us, but the model generalizes pretty well. And so when we start working then with other companies, other software companies, we've kind of turned this into an SDK so people can adopt it. And the motion we try to figure out, I think the greatest value we provide to other software companies is actually distribution. And so, for example, Sirion Labs, who does contract management, they are now embedding the SDK from watsonx, and then we're driving go-to-market for them. So I think there's kind of a difference between working with clients that are just consuming versus working with partners who want to adopt AI, kind of take advantage of the investments that we've made, but then can get distribution and reach out of it.
Yeah, when I think about AI and AI projects, for me, they're a little unique versus other technology projects that we've solved. I mean, I think you have to first get your data together. You have to understand your data. You have to understand clearly what you're doing, what your use case is with AI, not just, oh, I want to bring Gen AI in to make this a little bit more sexy or more interesting. You want to have a real use case with it. So I'll open it up to you guys. What do you see are the biggest challenges to having successful AI projects and implementations? We'll start with you, Shankar.
Yeah, I mean, we already mentioned the curation and the data corpus that you have and making sure it's of the right provenance. And so that's a very, very important part of it. And then I think choosing the right model, there's so many models. We believe that domain specificity matters a lot, right? And so the trend that I'm seeing is this, each industry ecosystem has a service provider. So if you think about financial information, there's Bloomberg and Refinitiv. You think about electronic health records. You think about the energy industry. Every ecosystem has a domain-specific service provider. Rob talked about all the software languages. So you think about all the people doing work in that corpus. So that's the way that we think of it, that it's basically going to trend towards domain-specific language models and generative image and video and so on.
So you see a future with a lot of small models that are very domain-specific.
I didn't say each model is small. There's going to be the size of models will vary hugely, and they'll have different efficiency ratios and so on. But the key point is that it'll be domain-specific, sometimes company-specific, profession-specific, process-specific. That's the way that I see the trend.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that makes a lot of sense. Rob, what do you think are the biggest challenges?
I think you nailed it with the data point. Most companies aren't ready to figure out how do they have the data in a usable format to do this. So I'd say that one sticks out. I think the other one's really cultural. We are talking significant disruption when you put generative AI into production in a company. It's going to either massively change people's jobs, displace some jobs. And so I think people take a little time to get over this. There's this old story about a rabbit and a beaver that are staring at the Hoover Dam, and the beaver says, I didn't build that, but it's based on an idea of mine. That's like the paralysis in every company right now. We've got a bunch of great ideas, but we're not willing to actually step off the precipice to get going because there's so many implications to this. So I do encourage companies, you have to find a way to get started. That's why I kind of go down customer service, code. These are kind of no regrets things to get people started.
Yeah, so to touch on something that you said, the change within the organization, how important and what kind of challenge do you think the change management is as we're changing maybe a task that certain teams were doing, and I think in your example was we may go down from 1,000 down to 90 people. How difficult or what role do you think change management needs to play in order to get the workforce ready to accept these changes that seem like they're inevitable to us today?
So the approach that I take. So first of all, change management is important, but it's not a doom and gloom kind of scenario of death. Everything that I'm looking at is all about augmenting and enhancing existing work. It's just the way you do work is going to be different. That's all. When I started, we used to have a slide rule and a logbook, okay, for engineering work, and then there's a calculator and a computer, and now you just speak into the computer. And so the tool has changed, and you need to teach your tool. And I think if you have that mindset around change management, you end up in a better place. Now, are they cost savings or productivity improvements? We can argue that, right? And each function will be different. But I'm on the side of positive reinforcement rather than Kita reinforcement.
I agree. Look how demographics sets up right now. Other than, I think, 3 countries, we have a massive problem maintaining productivity because of demographics. I was in Saudi 2 weeks ago. That's one of the few countries that actually is set up well demographically. And so may not be as great of a need in somewhere like that. But for everywhere else, I'm not sure this is actually this is more like deferring hiring. And we're going to get to a point within 5 to 10 years in most major economies where there is more work to get done than humans that can possibly do it if we want to continue growing GDP. So I think, to Shankar's point, I think the very positive piece here is without this, growth is actually going to stop in the world. It's evident in the demographics, except for India, Saudi, Indonesia. I think that's it. Everybody else is barely at replacement rates.
So it's really it's a necessary
productivity
tool.
accelerator.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Vaughn, do you have thoughts on that as well?
You know, when we're thinking about the implementation here, I do think of it, as I said earlier, as a tool to be leveraged, and that tool can be used in a variety of different ways. I do think that the companies that we have here on the panel today, that we're all thinking about ways to make business more efficient, to continue to have it grow with human capital that may not be expanding at the same rate as it had been. You know, I think the point there is well made. As we think about using those tools, I think there's some best practices. You mentioned, you know, having models that are kind of domain specific. One of the ways I think about that is like training models with people that have domain specific knowledge. One of the big learnings for some of the stuff that we've been doing is that you know, you need to inject humans into this process as well, you know, to have that subject matter knowledge. Without constant human involvement, these models tend to collapse. They're not self-reinforcing. And so we need those domain-specific folks. We need that knowledge in the models to get the kind of outputs that make sense and drive value. So I think there is going to continue to be sufficient roles for people to play in the maintenance and the running and the understanding of how to harness these tools. But those jobs will change. The way that people think about those tools will change. How to predict what that's going to look like and how dramatic those changes might be and how fast they will come. I mean, that's everybody's job in this room, and everybody else on the internet right now apparently as well.
Yeah. Well said. I think that, you know, Shankar, to touch on what you said about doom and gloom, it feels like maybe, and I'm curious what you guys think, that maybe the sentiment that I'm hearing in the office place is maybe less fear of doom and gloom and more acceptance that these are tools, in the same way that when Excel came out 20 years ago, it used to be very difficult to add a bunch of numbers up, and you would have whole teams that did that. And the idea of creating a pivot table to be able to like quickly look at something, now we do that in 3 minutes at our desk. We make 18 of them and decide which ones we like. So are you seeing that folks are maybe sort of turning away from doom and gloom and starting to consider this is a tool to have on the tool belt, and this is just going to bring efficiency and make us be able to move forward?
Yeah, I mean, I do believe, I think that everything in the area of image and video is already in that space. You know, the computer now creates images and creates videos, and likewise with language, and I think it's just going to get easier, and there'll be like a tool like Excel for working with languages and working with videos, and some will be existing tools, and there'll be new ones that come up, you know, just like we've seen in past disruptions. But of course, I live in, a Silicon Valley bubble, and so, I don't want to. We need to be reflective and consider what's actually happening in the real world. So please take my comments with a pinch of salt.
Yeah, noted. Great. Rob or Vaughn?
The one thing I think is great about this technology, I know the conference is called Scale Up, but this technology actually does an incredible job of scaling down. Meaning, I'll give you an example. One of the first clients that I worked with going into production with generative AI is a company by the name of Sports Clips. Some of you may have heard of them, but it's like a regional franchisor of haircutting salons. So who would be thinking that they would be doing generative AI? But their use case is simple. They have, they hire in stylists, I think they call them. Turnover in stylists is incredibly high. So you're constantly needing to bring new people in, get them trained quickly, get them productive. You need to do employment verifications. You need to do job requisitions. In 30 days, they're up and running with generative AI to automate all of that. So instead of having to hire 20 people to do this, yes, you need some people. Everything, there's a human in the loop on all of this. But instead of I need to hire 20, you need to hire like 3. And so the technology scales down incredibly well. You just have to have I'd say the imagination and willingness to do it.
Yeah.
I think about the use cases where it's not so much a replacement, but like I didn't have a solution before. And so generative AI is capable and AI in general is capable of providing solutions to problems that I simply didn't have an answer for before. Didn't matter how many people I threw at it. I had no good solutions, and I had tried over many years to figure out, like, how do I take 50,000 reviews on a particular product and make it digestible by a person in a way that's reliable, that you can trust, that you can understand, that's transparent. And we really hadn't been able to satisfactorily do it until now. So I'm really excited by the opportunities for doing things that were impossible before, or that we had felt were too difficult a project to solve. And so, you know, those are the areas where I think are really kind of exciting, and takes the gamut of problems to be solved runs from the very mundane to the almost incomprehensible at this point. And so, you know, that's what kind of makes this exciting. I think from an ROI standpoint, to kind of go back to some of the first questions that you were asking, some of the things that I'm focusing on first, they have a little bit of the kind of mundane problem to be solved, and isn't it cool how efficiently we can do this? But that helps me prove out the investment, the understanding, the addition of certain scientists to my team so that we can move on. And then the expectation is that we'll continue to think and brainstorm and look for differentiated applications moving forward. So, you know, that's a little bit the way that we've been thinking about how we ladder up leveraging the technology.
Yeah, good. That's great. Really good segue. I wanted to ask if we had time, and I think we have a few minutes. And I'll just press on what you said about impossible. What do you guys think today are the use cases that seem impossible with the technology that we have? Any use cases that just seem impossible right now that you would like to solve, but just to scale those up, or scale those down, Rob, just seem really, really tough with the tech that we have today?
I'll go first. I don't think it's impossible. I would say it's very difficult. When you're dealing with personally identified information, personally identifiable information, sensitive data, this is what slows down a lot of companies that are trying to figure out something with generative AI. They basically trying to mix, you know, what I call data that they're comfortable using and data that they think is risky to use. Mm-hmm. I think this problem will get solved. I know we've been saying this about data for like 20 years and we've gotten nowhere, but I feel like
But it's going to happen now.
Architecturally, I think it sets up better now. We're doing a lot of investment in Iceberg, which is an open table format, and Velox, which is a unified query engine. Like, the way this is happening in open source, if you put governance on top of that, AI and data governance, I think we can get this problem solved so that everything doesn't become a 5-year project with an uncertain ROI, which is pretty much the land of data governance today. Mm-hmm.
So in terms of the future, I mean, our job is to make companies like IBM and Amazon successful. And so we focus on the developers. And so 3 years ago, Amazon people talked about how they're using robotics in their warehouse with actually generative techniques. And so we have a big developer conference called GTC, 17th to 21st March. There'll be about 400 sessions. And I guarantee to you, you're going to see some things that are going to be out there pervasive in 3 to 4 years' time. Mm-hmm. And then we're doing a LLM Developer Day on the 17th of November. And we have a big body of people who basically are working on the latest in terms of language models. My personal predictions, recommender systems are going to be amazing. And what's happening in the United States in manufacturing will create this whole new ecosystem of robotics in all of the factories. There's $220 billion worth of factories being built in the United States. Wow. There's going to be a huge amount of robots in all of these factories and warehouses and distribution centers. And I think that's going to be quite amazing.
One of the areas that I'm kind of particularly fascinated by, and it has some application for my own job, but I think it has some broader implication for the internet, is content moderation. And thinking about the kind of content that's generated, but also mm-hmm. what we allow to be published. I think there's a really interesting intersection of governance guidelines and human desire beyond just what the tech can do. But I think that we're reaching a point where the ability to understand at scale the massive amounts of generated content, human and otherwise, that's out there, like we'll be able to we didn't know, we couldn't do it, it was too hard, will no longer be excuses.
All right, well, guys, thanks a lot. Hopefully this was informative and interesting for you guys, and you're going to be ready to decide which programs you should be adding AI into your operations and make sure that you're going to have some return on investment there. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you.
Please join me in thanking our panelists Rob, Shankar, Vaughn, and Chuck for this fascinating conversation.